Clubhouse.
Welcome back to Escaping Gilead. This is for the 7th episode of the first season of Amazon's The Testaments. This one was called Commitment. This is Paul.
This is Caroline.
So this one, we shifted back to Daisy. We got Daisy's sort of real talk narration and point of view for most of it. But we did shift here and there to the other greens, or plum to greens, whatever they're called, going through their interviews. But primarily, this was Daisy's episode.
Agreed. And timeline-wise, we're probably a day or two since the matches were made, extending maybe to like a week, considering all the scheduling of the commanders' interviews and the montage that we got there. Seemed like about that right timeline. We did get a little world building stuff. We have Boston is still held by the U.S. The attack by Gilead was fended off, but Gilead did gain some intel. So that was just a little bit more for us to keep layering on what's going on in the rest of the world.
Isn't that kind of interesting? Like, out of all the things that happened in Boston, men dying, bullets flying, Gilead captures some kind of intel from maybe a prisoner, or maybe they found some stuff at a location that they breached momentarily. And one of those two things gave up. We have a mole in the Aunt Lydia school in the Pearl Girl dormitory.
Yeah.
That's pretty specific stuff.
It is. And it seems like they went right for that transistor radio. Like they 100% knew that too.
We can kind of assume that the attack might have taken place during when the radio lost contact. Went dead on her.
Right.
And the florist was killed before that. So they found out about her Mayday affiliations before that.
All right, let's get into the flashback though, because that's a whole Western side of the whole thing that I don't want to get into quite yet. I was absolutely thrilled to see Rita in this flashback. It was so amazing. As soon as I saw her, I was like, Rita, Rita. I was very, very excited. Turns out that staying at the diner seemed to be some sort of test of like loyalty and or could she stick it out, like if she had to wait and wait and wait. And it was that waitress who ends up being the Mayday lady, and she brings her all the way over to Rita, and I was thrilled with this entire exchange. I loved some information we got about Rita's story, that she's going to culinary school. We can see her living like peacefully with her cats and everything. It was very heartwarming for me, Paul. I need those little slivers of hope that like people are doing okay after the fact.
When she delivered the line, I'm going to culinary school, it sounded kind of sheepish. Like she knows she's probably too old to be going to school in some people's eyes, but it's something that she's proud of. And
I loved it. It was so heartwarming. Really, it was. And I had talked about this in the previous episode that I thought maybe we'd get a Fred Waterford or some sort of moment, maybe even a Bradley Whitford moment with the various commanders in the stadium, whatnot. We didn't know who we'd see, but to get this cameo with Rita, yay, loved it.
Now, where she ended in The Handmaids was she was trying to meet up with a sister, right?
Yes.
At New Bethlehem. But then I would imagine after the cake poisoning incident that she probably needed to get out of there.
I'm positive she had to get out of there.
I mean, I'm pretty sure New Bethlehem probably closed down given its unpopularity with the other commanders, but still, yes, the cake was they figured out the cake pretty quick, I think.
Yeah, I think they did. Aunt Lydia, she figured it out. We also had the line of the entire Handmaid's world of the, do you understand me? That came out of Rita. She was talking about don't underestimate the girls and the women in Gilead, which I thought was a really good moment there to talk about. Daisy was having this whole moment of, they're just like less than, like somehow they're simple and they don't understand. And it's like, oh no, girl, like not only do they understand, but they're going to be far more clever than you think. So beware.
Daisy tries to approach the subject later when she says your worth has been determined, but I don't know that it's your worth so much as your fate, right?
Or maybe a little bit of both, because I think the worth part has to do with, where you're going to be in this society, right? So that is your fate in a lot of ways.
When she said, do you understand me? I keyed in right away.
Oh, yeah. I could see Serena's face. I could see June's face. All the things.
Do you think maybe back at the Waterford OG Casa that at some point Serena gave Rita the
Oh,
do
yeah.
you understand me treatment?
Yeah, I do. Yes. I think it was in the walls in that house. So, yeah, it was completely there. For those of you guys who didn't watch Handmaid's Tale, we don't know what you're doing here, but Rita was the Martha in the Waterford's household who June, as we've all seen, who brought Daisy in. She was their handmaid. That's the connection to everybody. In case you missed it and or forgot.
Right.
Okay, so one of the cool things that I really appreciated about this portion of the story was having Daisy do all this studying and making up this history and learning it, but also learning the commanders' faces and the names, because we got a really good nugget of information. First of all, Daisy reveals that her name's actually Marguerite, which I looked up, and in French that both means pearl and daisy. So funny little ad there. Also, she when she's flipping through the book, like the big freaking deal to me was when she got to Weston, and they did zoom in on it. So if you missed it, but if maybe you were doing laundry, maybe you were looking away from the screen, they did zoom in on his picture. But the nugget we got about him is that there's restraining orders out on him. He was a previous cryptocurrency guy, but the key here is that he was never held to account. We actually froze our screen for a moment, zoomed in, looked in on it, read all the things. And the main part about this is that he was never held accountable for all this domestic violence and domestic abuse. So this really got me worried when we're now talking about Agnes looking at Weston, and the comments that we were even getting out of her mother, Paula, saying things like, oh, this is the kind of man who likes a challenge. This is the kind of man who wants to like break a horse and that kind of stuff. Really creepy, really bad stuff. But man, did they layer it on in small ways by just showing you this little picture, having Daisy be like, oh, this one, not saying his name, not any of that. But if you're paying attention, now you know, like he is literally a domestic abuser and is the prime candidate for Agnes. So very nerve-wracking for that.
If you watch anything else that has spies or anything like that, learning, in some cases they call it the lore, or their made up backstory or whatever. That's a super common thing to do. It's just like, since she's a teenager, she's kind of flip about it. Like, yeah, I've already done that. Like that kind of.
Or that she was a good student and all that stuff. I think it's super important to know who you're dealing with. I know that Rita was like, just memorize their faces and their names. Like, don't worry about their backstory. But
that seemed short-sighted.
It did. And especially like, who's the domestic abusers? I mean, you need to know which guys are the ones you really, really, really need to stay away from. So I thought that was an interesting, piece of advice for her to be like giving to her.
Is it that she was underestimating Daisy's ability to take in information, or maybe handle the information if she had it, if she's...
Maybe so. I mean, the word brave came up a lot in this episode, being brave, feeling brave. I wonder if she was wanting it, like some of those details to not undermine Daisy's bravery, her ability to actually do this. And if you like kind of know too much about some of these people and the scary things that they're doing behind the scenes, maybe that would kind of, make her feel like she had second thoughts or something like that. So maybe I'm going with that.
Okay.
What did you think about this idea that they were going to basically transform her into somebody who could be a sponge, get into Gilead, not be a spy, but be a sponge? You're just collecting information, but transform her into somebody that the Pearl Girls would want to recruit. And that equaled things like coloring her hair, getting her a tattoo, putting on a lot more makeup, like that type of stuff. What did you think about this transformation? As
a book reader, this is something that came right out of the book. There were a couple of differences, one being the point at which Garth is introduced. Garth is introduced early on in this process instead of at the very end. So he's more of Mayday, everyday operator,
okay,
rather than a spy. I think there would have been a little more screen time if they had followed the book word for word. So it would seem really like where she was getting impatient about being ready to go. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I mean, they did a really good job with the hair, and they made it so that she would be smelly, and
right,
that kind of thing.
Well, living out on the streets and all that kind of stuff. It definitely seemed like, she did take over this persona. And again, maybe that was even part of the test of it all. Like, can she be prepared? Can she do all this? But also, can she like live out on the streets? Can she do this? Because that's part of like sort of toughening her up, right? Like getting her ready to be able to go deal with whatever she's going to deal with in Gilead. Now, the process of the Pearl Girls actually getting her to come to the hotel room and all that stuff. First of all, I was shocked at how nice the hotel was that the Pearl Girls were staying in. In my brain, they would be staying in some place equivalent to like the motel that they had Daisy in. But no, this was like the fancy place that I feel like when June came, to Canada, they put her up in like a nice hotel. And it seemed very similar to me. Like I was like, oh, wow, this is very nice. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, actually, what we know about Gilead and the way that they approach their resources is frugality, right? But it also makes sense, right? How, like, if you look at North Korea, right? How they have apparently these beautiful buildings just across the demilitarized zone from South Korea, that if you were there, you could see them and you might think, look at the opulence. Why wouldn't I want to live in North Korea? But apparently they're just like facades. Like on the opposite side, there's nothing.
That's amazing.
And there's nobody in there. Nobody lives in those buildings.
Wow. The things people think about to do. Like, I'm like the country's like, you know what we should do? Let's make like an old Wild West like facade. Like, oh my God. Okay. Look at them.
Yeah. So it's a show.
Right. And a trick, right? And this whole thing feels like a trick. You're totally right. This feels like, check it out. Check how good we live. Look how nice it is. Look how great we treat the women in Gilead. And it's like so amazing and all this. Did you feel like Daisy should have asked any additional questions? Like, then we didn't really see her ask anything of like, she kind of made like a smart remark about like, oh, I hear that they're treated like sex slaves. And they're like, well, what do you think people are treated like here? I know they didn't like get into it, but wouldn't it be natural for a person who might be recruited to be like, what's it like there? What does a Pearl Girl do? What would I do if I went there? Where would I live? Like, I don't know, just ask anything. I don't know if that's like they didn't want to get into it and we were kind of in this really kind of quick paced, like let's just montage this. We spent more time talking about the cartoon than we did really about what she was walking into.
But counterpoint.
Okay.
You ever notice in like say a cops and robbers movie where a new guy on the heist team starts asking too many questions beyond just his role in the heist,
Sure.
And then instantly everybody's suspicious. Like, why does this guy need to know our comings and goings?
Yeah, no, I get that. But she's not a part of the heist team. She's being recruited for the heist team.
Well, that's the thing. Her objective is to be recruited.
No, I got you. But it wouldn't be like natural for that person to ask any questions about becoming part of the heist? They might say like, well, what are we doing? What is the heist? Like anything? I don't know. I'm just saying like, is that unusual?
If you're there to heist, you're there to heist.
Well, obviously, but you're being recruited for the heist. I'm saying, so you don't know anything about it.
That's the thing.
You're not allowed to ask anything,
No,
I guess, because it's too much.
Think Ocean's 11. Just you.
Yeah, but those guys knew each other. They all knew each other though, in some regard. So that's a little bit different. But I don't know, whatever. Maybe you go to Scientology and you just sign up that day and you literally ask no questions about where do I live? Where do I eat? Where am I living? Like, I don't know, friggin' anything, I guess. I'm going more that. Heist is too fun. Like, get out of there. Go more cult, right?
They did have a lot of canned answers that were ready to go.
They did.
And I think she was told somewhere in the interim there that she needed to be recruited. She needed to accept being recruited, but she didn't want to make it look too easy because then that would also possibly help them sniff her out.
Yeah. I think she did a good job with that. She surprised me actually with like how like, she was like cussing in their face and everything. I was like, oh, okay, we're going that route. Like not like leave me alone, but like F-bombs, whatnot. I was like, okay. Now, here's the other thing. What do you think about this whole way that they move Daisy into Gilead? This whole like, this is just to cut the red tape and all this business. Like, how surprised were you that this is just like a dirt road situation?
We know that there are certain parts of the border between, I guess, the unsettled parts of the former United States and Gilead and Canada, right?
Right.
So what I'm talking about is like the wilds of Maine. That is no one's got any border checks along there. But when we saw American forces surround Fred and Serena during that car trip they took, it was sort of in trees. Remember, it was like,
oh yeah, definitely. Everything seemed to be like woods and stuff. Yeah.
But this seemed just like fields. And
It was like a dirt road, which for me, why I was like thinking about this is very unusual to me is because it also would show her where you could run away to. We don't know what happens. Obviously, they were digging through her backpack. We don't know if the second she gets in that van, they're going to blindfold her or do something like, who knows, like, right, what like could have done in order to be able to make her not know, like, how do you get back to this location too? You know, because this is a unmanned spot. And now we're basically showing you a soft border spot right here. We're showing it to you. So I was a little surprised about that, but then just a little surprised that this was like all teenagers who were handling this was like the other part. There was like no adults that were like actually in the group. I mean, everyone seemed like 20 or under, no?
Yeah, they all looked very young. Tell me if you think the book version would have been better or if it's better that they went with this simplified version.
Okay.
Remember I described that the Pearl Girls in the book are actually the recruiters, whereas the Pearls are the girls that are recruited.
Okay.
Kind of reverse of what we see here. Like the recruiters in this, we don't actually have any specific title. When they were getting ready to cross the border, what they did was they took one of the Pearl Girls' passports, took it to a forger, and had them put Daisy's information in that passport so that she could cross with that passport and another Pearl Girl. And then the one whose passport was used would stay behind and be another. She would just come across with the next group that went across.
Okay.
So they always kept somebody sort of in Gilead, and that's how they kept girls flowing into Gilead, was through this sort of sneaky passport scam.
Well, my question mark though is like, who's not being allowed in Gilead? Exactly. Like, why would you have to forge a passport into Gilead as a Pearl Girl? Like, who are you tricking is my question. Because I mean, the Gileadians all know you are coming from somewhere else where you're already being assigned to being a Pearl Girl. You are assigned being a recruited person.
Well, maybe
who are we tricking and why?
Maybe it's the U.S. guards.
Like, as if they would stop them and be like, you're a Canadian and or American or whatever citizen, you can't cross in? And who would do that?
Well, let's think about it.
I'm trying.
There would not be American border guards there. There would only be Canadian and Gilead.
In theory, Gilead ones.
So perhaps if a Canadian border guard sees a Gilead passport, he's just like, fine, go back. But if he sees a Canadian, he's like, what's your business crossing this border? Because I can't help you once you do that.
Totally fair, completely fair, but also like it's very unclear to me like how secure would Gilead want the border to be for people coming in, especially like a young girl. Are they viewing her as a threat? Are they viewing her as a potential spy? Are they like, is that even the thinking? Or it's like, bring them all in? Like,
yeah. Because
really how vetted.
They'll sort it out once they get there.
Well, I'm just saying like how vetted are these girls that are coming across really? Like not, I mean, somewhat, but by these 4 teenagers in the hotel room, like their job is just to get her hyped up to want to go. Not necessarily like trying to figure out whether she's a spy or not exactly, right?
Yeah.
And they've claimed that they've never done this before, right? That was the conversation with Rita and the waitress and everything was they were like saying like, we've never sent a teenager over before. So it's not like there's this, oh, remember the big surge of teenage spies that came in? And so now we're very careful about who comes across the border. This part was like kind of wild to me. And, you know, I accept it at face value. We do get to meet Garth. We do get to sort of understand that he has been a part of this process for a while. So all of that was eye-opening. This guy has had a lot of jobs, I would like to mention. He's Agnes's guardian. He's also been like the border crossing person for Pearl Girls. He's also working on being a commander. Like, dude has been busy these last however many months or whatever.
That's true. If he's sort of hired, you know, or not hired, but stationed at the Mackenzie house.
But he's also handling border crossing, which we know that she's supposed to be in, they said Maryland.
Yeah.
So that's not close
Nowhere
to the border. So yeah, Garth is
close.
busy. He's a busy bee. He's all over the place. All right. So that was basically, now we got the backstory of how did Daisy get into Gilead. I know we really enjoyed the Lydia story of understanding the transition between how she got from one side of the border to the other. What do you think about this one in comparison, like getting this backstory compared to like the stadium story?
The stadium story fills in certain aspects of the fall of the United States that I've been curious about since I first heard about The Handmaid's Tale, since I first saw the Robert Duvall movie version of The Handmaid's Tale, and then was told this is a book, and then I read the book. The part where America fails is the part where I am really curious to see what it looks like, you know?
I think that's super fair. I think that's what intrigued me a lot too, is like, what are the steps? Would I recognize my country falling is really my question. You know, like how quick they were like, oh, it's a coup. And I was like, would I ever say that out loud? Like, would I ever be like, Paul, are we having a coup? Like,
I don't know.
I don't know if I would recognize it if it was happening. That is my entire draw to this. And maybe the point of the entire series is, would you recognize when your country was about to fall, the moment it was falling? Would you, how long would it take you, and how quickly could you act at that point? And like, at what point do you recognize, oh shit, like it's time to move? I kind of think that's the point of the entire thing, to be honest with you, because it is a cautionary tale about wanting to know what people would do and at what point would they act.
I agree with that. I mean, you could argue that there's
other points too.
There's
obviously.
other
of
things.
Of course.
But I think that one you identified is more universal for us, specifically America. Even though Atwood is Canadian, I think you could argue that works for them too.
But I think even when you go back to like World War II stories and people being like the whole like they took my neighbor and I said nothing, and they took my whatever and I said nothing. Like, it's like, at what point do you recognize danger? At what point do you recognize things are falling apart? I think that that's like a big overarching theme, at least in this entire series.
There's conversations you and I have had just interpersonally, you know, about knowing when to pull the pin, knowing when to say this is an emergency.
Well, and you know, again, we have 3 special needs kids, so that can be on like a microcosm way or like a way bigger way. Like, how do you know when to say when? How do you know when to call the ambulance? How do you know when to go to the hospital? How do you know when to say like, oh my God, this is bigger than I can handle? And then, you know, bigger than that, like we have talked about, of course, during things like COVID and stuff like that, there was a lot of conversation between us about like, if we had to leave an area and go somewhere else, like how could we do that? How could we gather our kids and all they need and all the supplies and everything and actually make a transition from one place to another place for safety's sake or for whatever? And we figured out we'd be pretty slow and cumbersome and not good at this. So we were sort of going with a hunker in place kind of situation, I think, is what we were figuring out for us. We're just not very agile as a group.
No.
But it's an important question. And I think something that these transition flashbacks are really like picking at that for me, of that, like, how would you know today's the day? How would you know? Obviously, like the stadium and stuff is very dramatic and like, you know, they drag you away. That's how you know that today is the day. But when you got ready that morning, what did you hear on the news the week before? What was happening that suddenly make that switch flip and be like, wait, I think I shouldn't go to work today. I think there is something more going on. And like when we watch Handmaids, June was way faster to recognize it. Luke was arguing back like, nah, the switch isn't flipped yet. You know, we don't need to leave yet. We don't need to act yet. They were on 2 different pages about when do you recognize the danger is big enough to act.
Going back to your example from our previous podcast, when the banks shut off women's access to their own money, I don't think that happened on coup day, because coup day happened when June was at work, and that conversation happened when she was at home.
Right.
So they did have some, I don't know if it was an hour or a day or a week, but they did have some little gap there.
We might have to go back and watch that episode.
That is when Luke was...
He was dragging his feet.
I'm sure this will be straightened out, or, you know, some kind of thing like that. And yeah, I think a lot of people would be Luke's in that situation.
I think so too. And for good reason, because it's almost like too mind blowing to think, like, again, when Lydia said, oh, it must be a coup, I was like, what? Like, who would jump to that? But, and I know with Lydia, she said there had been multiple turnovers of the government. So obviously, again, like that wasn't just like one day, the first day that something odd happened. They had like some amount of turmoil for a bit, because she recognized it right away what it was. All very fascinating to me. All something that we weren't directly talking about in this episode, but definitely like made me think of like, when would you know? And actually, I think moving into like when the eyes are coming into the Pearl dorm, I think this is a similar kind of feeling of like, would you recognize that you had tripped too many tripwires, like for Daisy? Would you recognize they were coming down on you? They were figuring you out, because Daisy doesn't, you know, she doesn't know they're coming. She doesn't know that the whole situation is going to happen. But it was making me think like, how many times did she say something out loud? How many times was she jiggling Talia's bed? How many times, you know, was she in the bathroom making scritchy, scratchy sounds and stuff before this was happening? No, here's the deal. Of course, we're not suggesting that Daisy's actions were what called Weston in. It was apparently some Boston intel that called them in, if we believe all of that.
And then the radio was a smoking gun to them.
Oh, God, of course. My God, with the radio. All right, so let's talk about this. First of all, I was surprised that Weston had asked permission to come into the school. I don't know if that was just like truly just a formality, or like, could they say no? Did they have any ability in the hierarchy of power for Lydia to be like, actually, today's not a good day. Why don't you come back tomorrow? Could she have said anything, you think?
Yeah, I think so. But she would have needed someone like Judd, another man in a higher position, to tell the man that was bugging her to bug off. Or the promise that if you don't get out of here, I will call him. And that having enough teeth that the man would be like, oh, well, shit, we'll be back.
Right. I got to tell you that, you know how like sometimes you feel a little like heebie-jeeb when something's going on and you're like, oh no, this character's in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't about Daisy, but when they went to the tattoo removal, like laser treatment thing, and Talia got a name, when they were like, Daisy and Talia need to come for your treatment, I was like, oh no. Like, I felt like, why are we giving Talia a name? Why are we talking about her mom's name, Claudia? Why are we spending so much? Why are they allowed to chit chat with each other? Oh no, they're allowing them to have like a moment of humanity. Oh no, they're humanizing Talia. Oh shit. Like, as soon as all that was happening and then Weston showed up, I'm like, Talia's dead meat, because they made her a human to us. It wouldn't have been nearly as impactful had they not given her a name, allowed her to have conversation with Daisy, joke back and forth, start to become a person for us, which then made her being drug off like that much more horrible and painful and awful. Which I gotta ask you this, if you're Talia and you had your eyes open staring over at Daisy listening to that freaking radio that one night, and you know your bed's been jiggled, how do you get drug off by the eyes not yelling, Daisy?
Yeah.
Look at Daisy. She did it. It's not mine. She put it in my bed. Like, were you shocked?
Yeah, quite a bit, actually, that we know that she saw Daisy fooling around on their bed.
She had her eyes dead open on her.
She was awake.
Yep.
She knew getting dragged off by these men was
the end.
probably it. So
So do we think that Talia was actually like, I mean, she was screaming her head off. There's no part of me that really thinks that she had like some wherewithal to protect Daisy by not yelling her name. Is it just like your absolute shock and everything would just cloud your brain? Like, it would fill with some sort of chemical that you're just like not thinking straight. You're just screaming at that point.
yeah, adrenaline and, fight or flight, but you're restrained, so you can't do either one.
My fight would be yelling Daisy, I tell you. If they smacked one of those masks on her mouth right away, then I would be like, okay, I see what happened. But like, she was like screaming and screeching, and I was like, how is she not being like, it was not me, it was Daisy? Like,
Well, let me put this in your mind.
oh, okay.
I bet they just don't take her out back and shoot her. I bet they want to know what she, the supposed spy, has learned.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So there might be some questioning. Wouldn't you?
Well, yes, I think I would. For sure.
If
sure,
you
I
ran
would.
the eyes.
If I was an eye. Yeah, that's a common thing we say in this house, you guys. If we're at any restaurant, we're like, if I own this restaurant, this is what I would do. So in this case, if I was an eye, yes, of course, I would be questioning everything about the situation and like, how did you get this radio here? And what are you listening to? And who are your contacts? And who's your handler? And all the things. And of course, looking into like who has any contact with Talia in a given day, in a given week, whatever, you know. But she's not the one that's been anywhere. Daisy was like the only Pearl girl who was at the ball.
Even if they question her the old-fashioned way, you know, like
beatings, yes, we know.
Pull out your fingernails or whatever.
I assume she's gonna have nothing to say.
And she has nothing to say. Are the eyes just going to be like, well, I guess that was bad intel? Or do you think they'll be like, no, we got the wrong girl?
Oh, I don't think they go back on their thing. I think they kill her anyway.
Do they keep fishing in the dorm or what? Or was this just here to put the fear of God in us?
I kind of think it was just here to put the fear of Daisy in it, even though I agree with you wholeheartedly that, yeah, if it was a real investigation and you felt like you weren't getting anything out of the suspect, yes, you go back and shake the tree again. Why would you not? Like, that makes no freaking sense. And of course you would bring the two on either side of her bed if you found the radio in her bed. I mean, there's 1,000 things that, yeah, I think would be a natural thing. But I feel like in this story, given this is episode 7 and all the things, like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this puts a lot of pressure on Lydia to move Daisy into a different situation or a different status or a different whatever, get her out of the Pearl Girl dorm or whatever. I thought the questioning between Weston and Daisy, where we do get to hear her like tell her whole story and, you know, she had 2 dads and all this stuff. I do feel like that was telling in terms of like, I don't really think he was buying it all. I mean, when he said very dramatic, you know, and like stuff like that,
That's
or
what I
you're
was about to
very
say.
good in a crisis.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't really think he was like, this is all good and I feel totally fine about you. I mean, I felt like he was very dismissive of her and very like, I don't really believe you. But I don't know if that's like teenage girls or if it's like, I am on to you. And we do need some tension here. I mean, we are nearing the end of the season. You know, to ratchet up the danger for Daisy makes perfect sense to me. So you're right. Maybe dragging Talia off was always the plan. And they know it's Daisy the whole time. But you've got the other girls literally peeing on the floor, you know, and so now we're going to watch you, the rest of the Pearl Girls, and see who does what next.
Yeah.
Because we've now rattled you. And if they wanted to harm her right there, they could have just shot her in the head right there, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like
that would have
there's
been a pretty decisive
a pretty
lesson.
dramatic moment. But also, they do that stuff like in front of people. And, you know, we know that. We know they cut
Ask
the hand
Putnam.
off. Yeah. Look at the teacher at the teacher's lounge, or look at them cutting off the hand of the guy in front of all the girls in the earlier episodes. So they are definitely not above just like punishing somebody or killing somebody right in front of everybody. It would be very rude given it was like the girls' dorm and we'd have to clean up a body and all that stuff.
And they're responsible for the cleaning.
Yeah, that'd be awful.
A lot of
It would all
hands and
be
knees,
awful.
scrub
Ugh.
brushes.
Super awesome. Ah, gross. I thought it was very fascinating that Daisy chose to use the Pearl Girl prayer to like console herself after Talia was taken. I thought that was like a real moment. I don't know 1,000% what to make of it, other than she needed to sort of chant something, and it would be like the one thing you could chant that anyone else could hear, and it would be like fine for you to be saying.
Good point. Yeah.
So I don't know if it was that, like, I need to comfort myself, but I can't say stuff like I miss my mom and dad. You've got to say something authorized.
Right.
What did you make of it?
She was saying that she likes emo music, so like some My
Right,
Chemical
singing
Romance
some
lyrics
song to herself.
would not
Right.
not work.
And maybe also though, it would have been one of her very last moments in her safe place, like in the hotel and like away from this whole Gilead thing. Like that was the last place she was them really praying around her. And then, you know, she took this like van journey, but that was like her last moment of like when she was like Daisy, really Daisy.
Well, you remember she had that kind of dissonant voice over where she describes the looking at the lady versus looking at the hag.
Yeah.
And once you see one, then you can't unsee it. And so you see it both ways every time. I was wondering if it was that she sees if Gilead wasn't corrupt and run this way, that some of the things that they're talking about are actually good. And, you know, maybe I'm just saying for her.
No, I understand 100% what you're saying. Yeah.
So
that she was legitimately seeing the pros and cons of Gilead all at once.
yeah.
And that it was unnerving though, because like, you know, once you can see the other side, it's like, oh wait, I can see the other side. And that's a little like, ooh.
Well, and that she found some comfort in their words.
She did. All amazing and interesting and surprising. So let's talk about for a second about the fact that Agnes needs to console Daisy and invites her over and has this dollhouse moment with her. What do you think about this entire interaction between Agnes and Daisy? Because for me, I wrote the vibes are real up and down in this entire visit.
I think this show is about these two girls. So I think they're going to spend the majority of the show together, or at least in each other's orbit. With this being out of school, you know, they don't have the prying eyes of the aunts and the friends to judge and say this, or Shunammite to throw in some sass mouth kind of comment. I thought their chemistry was pretty bad. You know,
I did too, because it was like they were having two different conversations. That was the thing that was kind of fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Like there was times when I thought that Agnes should have had a response to Daisy, but didn't. Like the personality comment. It was rude what she said. Obviously, it was snotty and very mean to Agnes. Yeah. Agnes like gets up. She seems, of course, she seems like disturbed by this comment. But the way that she like goes over and just gets out her trinket bag, which I thought was a really extremely personal and private thing to share with Daisy, like immediately after being sort of like taunted and harassed by Daisy. I felt like that was a very odd move. I don't know if there was something else edited out. I don't know if there was more of a transition there, but I felt like, again, there was a disconnect of like, she just said something weird to you, and then you decide to show her like very private stuff, your trinket bag and everything.
I think Agnes is looking, I mean, despite what Rita says about don't underestimate them, she still seems to be looking at things at this point in her development as a child might, you know, very like, this is what my dad always told me, so this is what's going to happen, kind of thinking without much exposure to how things might really go. So, for instance, this person that just made fun of you, a lot of us would feel very defensive.
Right.
But the first thing she does is expose another vulnerability.
Right. And so maybe that is just like a lack of experience with like, I mean, they're not, in theory, they don't bully each other. In theory, though, only in theory, because that's not true.
No.
You know, we've seen it happening,
Yeah.
but maybe Agnes herself didn't know what to do with the comment. So she just thought she was going to double down and be like, well, let me try to humanize myself to you and like that. And I get it. Like she was trying to
look, I have a personality.
Yeah, I have a trinket bag. Or maybe I am a curious person and I am trying to find out more about the world, but I am like sheltered and stuff. So these are the few trinkets that I have to try to explain to you how I'm trying to piece together the world. What did you think about the whole thing about, you know, like the crack pipe and all that stuff? Do you think that Daisy should have told her what it is? Don't tell her what it is. Just play it the way she did?
I think it was figuring it out on the fly that was inevitable, but also what kind of broke the moment for them. Because I think explaining drug addiction to her, you would have to run into whatever else they might have been taught about drugs in Gilead, if anything at all. Maybe it's so controlled at their level that it's non-existent as a problem, because they just kill everybody that gives them a problem.
I mean, but we know drugs are available because of Jezebels and stuff. Like we know there are drugs in Gilead and all that kind of stuff, but we just assume that there's like no
trade.
Well, no conversation to the children about it. Like, why would you bring up any of that stuff, right? So, I mean, I agree with the whole idea that like there was like a last ditch effort to try to bond with Daisy a little bit, to try to like have like a moment. And she was like obviously very disappointed, I guess, that Daisy, like she knew Daisy wasn't telling her the truth, because Daisy said, she's like, I just like your version better, which is like, I am not telling you the truth, but I'm just trying to say this in a nice way. Like, I don't really want to tell you what it's really for. And so at that point, yeah, that would be really off-putting if I was Agnes. Like, you're not going to tell me what this is for? Like, this is the whole reason I brought you to my house, so that we can like exchange this kind of stuff.
Like, have you seen on the Antiques Roadshow where someone will bring something in and the expert will say, well, what do you think it is? And they'll have come up with some just romantic, sweeping story about what this item went through before it came into their grandmother's possession, who passed it down to her or whatever. And it's all wrong. Yeah. It's totally not like, whatever.
It's a crack pipe.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it does seem like that's very true.
Did you notice, maybe it's an Easter egg, but I wonder why they tossed a couple of those pens that when you trip them over, it exposes the naked lady, like the bikini falls
Yeah,
away.
you noticed that.
I wonder why to add those in, just sort of like the detritus of the civilization that came before.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to understand that like this is like the creepiest of stuff you could find. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not just like, I mean, yes, there was like some like a fidget spinner and stuff like very basic stuff in there, but the idea of finding something that was a drug thing, a sex thing, like
Right,
that makes
yeah.
sense to me that would be like in her things. And I don't think it was like she picked and put back things. I think these are truly the things she found. So like I think she kept everything she could keep, but that's the thing, like what percentage of her loot was sex related or drug related, and it turned out to be like kind of a lot.
Right. The kind of the PG-13 aspects of
Right. I
society.
say a crackpot's probably rated R.
Yeah, all right.
I would say probably so.
Okay, so all the work that they've been putting in to becoming the perfect Gilead wives leads up to these couple of interviews that the girls get that they don't even get to speak at unless directly addressed. And they do it in this very interesting way with a montage that's cut so that it seems like all the questions and all the answers are all kind of the same, because it's one person asks one question, but then it flips to the other room and another person answers it, and it seems to work. And
The thing that I thought was interesting, it was the father's speech that I thought was fascinating, because each of the fathers, obviously they filmed each of the men saying one speech, one entire speech, the one speech, and then the second father and the third father. And so they would just splice them. Like, this is what our house, oh, the Mackenzie's house, like, and they would just splice into the next one. Like the father's speech was identical. And then, yeah, I mean, the girls were basically, Hulda though was smiley and like excited to be there. Agnes and Becka clearly not at all. What did you think about the moment that Agnes decides to slip in this knowledge that Shu had offered up at the plum lunch, where she's talking about like, oh, here's the different commanders and here's what you need to know about them. She has like a dossier on everybody. She knows everybody's biz. And she slips in there that Weston's wife had died previously. And Agnes decides to use this as like a little moment.
for us, the audience, it led to a comment that he makes as he's leaving the house, which is, it was the worst day of my life, the day I lost my child.
Yeah.
His wife died too. He doesn't really mention that as the as an aspect of the worst day of his life. He
That's
just
so weird about that.
mentions the child. That's not a great look. And it was exposed through this comment, but the comment was super risky, right? Because it seems like Paula's right. Like, she was trying to rattle him, be like, nah, forget this girl. Whatever. I don't want to be around somebody that's purposefully trying to offend me.
It's so interesting. So you were taking it like she was trying to put the commander off her. I was taking it like she was trying to expose something about the commander, maybe to her parents inadvertently, like maybe to her dad even, to be like, I know that this guy's been married before, like maybe sullying him to the group, you know, like, so interesting that you took it more like that the commander would be put off by her. I took it like kind of both ways, that like, yeah, of course he would be put off because for 1,000 reasons, bringing up a previous wife in a possible engagement thing is a pretty big wet blanket situation to do generally. But then also, I mean,
Worse if she's dead.
right. But if you believe him that he was put off by, I don't think he was put off. I don't think it was that his feelings were hurt in that moment and that it was the worst day of his life when his child died. I don't believe that shit. I think he stood up and went because Agnes was saying something smart to him. You know, something like smart mouthy, that he was like, I'm ending this conversation. I don't think it was because he was like, oh, my heart, you know, like I gotta go. And I don't know if it was supposed to come off that way to the parents or what he was trying to do there. I don't think she hurt his feelings one bit. I think she hurt his pride in that she knew something about him that he probably thought she didn't know.
Oh, so then maybe she tipped her hand or something about...
Well, that we all know more about you, sir, and you're not just judging me, I'm judging you as well. And all those girls are talking about you too. Like, you think all you commanders are sitting in your high tower talking about us. Well, P.S., we're sitting at our lunch table talking about you. And I know shit about you too. So like, don't come in here acting like you're just like this innocent lamb, like get out. You know, there was some complexity to that comment and some complexity to his response to it. Who was not complex is Miss Paula, who was like ready to beat the shit out of Agnes after that. What did you think about this friggin' men want to break girls like her horse metaphor? I wanted to barf.
Well, I feel validated for using horse metaphors throughout my description of the treatment of the girls. I was also surprised to learn that Paula was a therapist.
I know. She just throwing out like her past life business all the time, right?
Then to have this person who says she was a therapist basically say every girl that came through here I was judging in this harsh kind of like you had it coming kind of way.
Well, it's some sort of statement. I don't know what to take of it as the viewer, but there was a moment there where it was not sounding good about how Paula got to where she was and how she was as a therapist. Like, it sounds like she was pretty
icy,
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, we'll throw out this to all listeners who are listening. We're very pro therapy up in here. And so we do not agree with Paula and all this, but it is scary to think that a therapist is just sitting there judging you. And I don't know, that would like go join another society, which is what we think is going on with Paula. We don't know. I don't know if she was taken or if she willingly joined Gilead. Very hard to tell. She's acting like she was willingly joined.
Yeah.
But who knows what's going on with this lady. Very scary too to just have this person be her like mom figure and that she would be cool with Agnes being in a position of being broken and all that kind of crap. Like really scary crap. Like I hated all of it. Paula is a real big bitch, y'all. Like I hate her a lot.
Caroline's performed detailed analysis.
Yeah, there you go. That's
Paula.
My character analysis of her. Yeah. Let's stop in real quick with Becka and what's going on with that, because she does get Maddox as a possibility and also Garth Chapin. They do have a conversation in this episode where I thought that Agnes actually handled it really well when she found out that Garth was one of her, you know, options. You know, she said like, you know, we don't have any control over like our matches. Like I thought she actually kept a really level head in that moment. Becca's assumption that Agnes was going to lose her mind over this was our assumption, was that Agnes was going to immediately freak out. She was actually much more gracious to Becca and like, we don't have control and I'm not trying to be mad at you. Could you just not pick him? My heart really broke in this entire conversation. I really appreciated the delivery from the actress. When the second time she said see, she was like, see? Like she said it in this really strained voice that I thought was like really dead on of like how I think I would be feeling in her shoes of like, I'm standing in front of you telling you I don't want to be married. I want to basically kill myself, and you're sitting here begging me not to pick him as if I have like any choice in the world of what my fate is going to be. I felt all of her desperation. I felt all of her worry. And then when we get into this interview, I mean, everything is exactly as she thought. It was gross. It was, you know, Maddox was like a complete weirdo. He was the same dude from the ball who spiked her drink.
Did you notice the scene, you know, during that montage? It was, you know, hard to keep track of who was talking to who, but he was the one that said something to the effect of, and very pleasing to the eye or something.
Oh, yeah.
And then they leave in this really long drink out of his coffee. Just a long, it was so
gross.
Suggestive because he's looking right at her.
Yeah, he's like leering at her and being nasty. No, it was gross. I was really...
Isn't it weird that we can read people's manipulation of food and know that they are thinking and doing sexual things through the food?
I think advertising...
Or am I weird for thinking about it that way?
No, I think advertising has taught us that. I mean, putting like a berry to your lips or licking your lips or doing... I think we've seen that in advertising all the years we've ever been alive. So, no, I think... Or, my God, moving your hand up your leg with like some sort of like piece of food or something. Yeah, no, I mean... We've been brainwashed into it.
Remember I told you way back in art school, someone brought in a video where they had set up the camera and they were just looking at like a cutting board and they were cutting like a strawberry. It was very close in on the strawberry and you could see their hands and they were kind of manipulating the strawberry. And it wasn't anything overtly that would be like, that's the same kind of thing you might do with your hand if you were doing something with another person. However, everybody in the room was really uncomfortable. They're like, I don't know why I'm feeling these feelings watching you deal with this strawberry. And he's like, what? I didn't mean to do anything.
Oh, bullshit. Right. I thought, you know what? That's funny. I thought you were going to use the hot dog example where the man had like, it was like frozen hot dogs in the bottom of an aquarium. And as the hot dogs would thaw, they would stand straight up and like pop to the top of the aquarium. And that was also like sexually suggestive. The whole thing was so weird.
He set that to when a man loves a woman.
So there's that too. Yeah. So food, drinks, all that stuff equating to sexuality. Absolutely. Now, the one interview that I thought went pretty well actually was Garth. That actually gave me a little bit of like hope that like if Becka is paired with Garth, this feels like maybe Becka will be safe for a while. Like, I mean, I loved all his comments. I really did. Where, you know, it's not a fancy house, but it's located close to the family and her friends. And when he said, and your friends, and there was like that little moment of recognition between the two of them of like, I'm not going to try to keep you from hanging out with Agnes. I'm not trying to keep you from being able to like have people in your life. And all of it looked great. I really appreciate it. Now, I don't want to be tricked. It's Gilead, y'all. It's Gilead. Never do I want to be tricked that a kind eye and a nice, gentle person is really that all the time. Like he's going to have to play his part at some part, and she could still get hurt easily by this situation.
Well, I wanted to ask, like, why do you think he tried so hard? If he's actually a Mayday plant and theoretically might need to be pulled one day or could be killed or would need to move or something, right? He's not really like husband material.
Yeah, but I think in order to be able to move up the ranks in the commander world, he needs to play his part. He needs to get a wife and start having a family and start being able to move up, you know, in that regard. So I think that it only helps his position. Plus, if he has a wife and he's now considered to be like a married commander, I think that that gives him better access. Plus, if him and Becka end up being, if he can tell her what he's doing, if that ever happens, she can also spy, you know, like it actually helps him, I think, in all ways to be able to do that. Now, again, is he thinking about what happens to Becka if I get snatched up and what happens to her and all that stuff? No, that's where I'm saying like, just because he was being kind in this interview doesn't mean he wasn't putting Becka in harm's way. Doesn't mean that he's not going to have to do something that harms Becka. Because yes, he was being nice and stuff, but getting married is a hierarchy thing for commanders, and he would get to move on to like this next station, move out of the barracks, get a house, all this stuff, all of the things he wants to be doing for all the reasons, Mayday reasons, and probably just day-to-day quality of life reasons, right?
Yeah. I can't remember specifics, but I know the feeling is correct that there's something read into your, I guess, connection with God, the more prosperous you are with your family, right? And that's the kind of man they want running Gilead, one that has a happy wife and lots of kids running around. Then that is a sign of God's great gifts.
Yeah, that he's like smiling on you, all that. So, I mean, honestly, I'm still obviously between Maddox and Garth. I mean, I'm very much hoping that Garth is the one. I'm very scared for Agnes that Weston's going to be the one. I really don't see how he's not going to be the one, because Paul is on board. Mackenzie didn't like the other guy, the guy charged with economic growth. There is a third unforeseen guy. Like we didn't see him, so not sure what his story was. But since he got no play, I got to think it's Weston, which is terrible. Let's hit over to Hulda real quick. She has this Eric Stoltz looking a guy, and she was thrilled. She was very interested. She was happy with all of this. It seemed like maybe that's her one and only match, really.
And it's weird. It's like I assessed Agnes and Daisy's chemistry through that awkward conversation they had as bad. But then I see these two smiling at each other, exchanging really no words, and I think they have good chemistry, these two.
I don't know what, because it's so hard to read a commander, right? Like who knows if he's looking at her like, she's like this meek woman, and that's how she's described. She's like this meek, obedient girl, excellent. Like I can abuse her like hell. Like who knows what he's thinking when he's smiling at her?
That's true.
Like I don't know. I mean, I think Hulda, she revealed herself at the lunch table that like she was all like giddy about what they look like, and like, oh, he's like been very blessed and like stuff like that. So she was happy to, I think, get a younger guy too. That was like a big deal that he was younger, because so many of the commanders were super old. So I could understand why that would be appealing. And, you know, just generally he wasn't saying anything or doing anything overtly disgusting and or abusive. And so it's a real low bar for what went well in your commanders meeting.
In a society of men expected to marry 14-year-olds, he was doing fine.
Yeah, exactly. So we do have like this like after interview moment with Agnes where she, you know, she's yelled at by Paula. She storms out of the house. She ends up finding Garth, and, you know, she finds his cigarette butt on the ground and kind of sniffs at it, puts it to her lips, all that stuff. What did you think about their interaction, and what are we supposed to get out of this?
Agnes is feeling a lot of feelings. I think she's starting. I mean, the nature of the feelings is maybe different than what we were saying Becka was feeling, but we knew that Becka was just boiling over with feelings that she couldn't keep in, right? And I think that's and conflicting feelings about, you know, how she actually feels versus obligation versus what's expected of her, what will get her in trouble, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I think Agnes is feeling some of that too. But then that personality comment just rankled her, you know?
Yeah.
Someone that doesn't know anything about me just assessed me as like nothing.
And then I just had this terrible commander situation where I just got screamed at by my mom.
And that.
All of this is happening, and I'm being told that a man's going to break me and all this stuff. I mean, all of that just happened. The moment that really got me was when she asked about the meeting with Becka. Like, how'd your meeting with Becka go? And Garth, I mean, he just kind of like looks to the side like he doesn't want to tell her it went well, and that I think would be fine with getting matched with Becka. It was a heartbreaking moment for Agnes. I mean, you could see that she had that recognition on her face, like, oh shit, like there is a very good chance that my best friend is going to marry the guy I'm into. And it, you know, I felt really bad for her. And to watch her take that cigarette butt back and put it in her trinket bag, it's a heartbreaking scene for me with her. And to have Paula, I know I said that out of whack in terms of like, it's Paula comes in later to her and says the breaking her and everything. But I think you have to take like all those scenes in totality, you know? And so for me, her whole mindset right now is just like, the adults who are supposed to be looking out for me are throwing me to the wolves willingly and knowingly. And the people who I actually want to be with are going to be taken away from me. Like Garth's not going to be my guardian anymore, and my best friend's not going to be there. And then they're going to be together. Like her whole dollhouse world is falling apart. So then leading into next week, though, I think they're going to make a pick. I think we got to blaze forward, right? Like I do. I think that's the way it works. I think that, and you know, this was called commitment, this episode, but I think by the next one, yeah, I think, and everything that I see Becka going with Garth, and everything I see Agnes ending up with Weston. And these are, for Becka, I feel happy, I guess, because she's got her best chance at possibly, and I say that in kind of a weird way because I don't know if Garth will get her involved into something where, you know, if having a close friend is a liability, then being close to a Mayday person has got to be like, you're signing your death certificate in a lot of ways by marrying him, because you're going to be with him whenever the shit goes down, probably, or whatever. You know, it could your house could blow up, or, you know, whatever. At the very least, your husband's very likely to die. You know, and then she's left a widow, and whatever that means at that point. At best. Best. The wives, I think, often go down with the ship. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's putting her in harm's way. So, like, in one way, you're like, oh, she's safer with Garth than Maddox. But then it's like, yeah, but Garth is actively doing stuff that is going to put her in harm's way, too, even if it's inadvertent, like, compared to Maddox actually doing something to her. Yeah. No situation is good for any of these women, obviously. The one thing that before we end this episode that I do want to like go back to real quick is I don't want to forget our dentist storyline. Like I still feel like that was out there and we had too much at the beginning. You know how like in a really good mystery, they tell you some stuff at the beginning, then they divert your attention for a little bit so you forget about that guy that they showed you at the very beginning and you forget about him entirely. I don't want to forget about him. I don't want to forget about Becca's dad, because I feel like there's no reason we would have spent so much time with what he was doing at the beginning to now not have that actually pay off by the end of this season. So I was thinking about like the little nuggets that we had that I'm just sort of putting together and remembering. Like we have Hulda getting her teeth whitened. Like, is it potential? Did that already happen? Did that not happen? Is there going to be an incident? Don't know. The conversation with Lydia with Agnes showed that Agnes could go to Lydia when she was asking about Garth being put into the mix. That did let me know that they had a comfort level that like maybe she could go talk to her. And then I put in my notes Garth being matched to Becka, that like maybe somehow, I don't know how that will play in, but having Mayday be matched up into the dentist family feels like another way to get him in some way, or another way to expose the situation.
May not even need to be Mayday, you know.
Just Garth as an eye or as a commander or whatever.
Yeah, that might be it.
That there might be more.
If, say, it's the wedding night, and I'm sure the expectation is consummate.
Right.
You know, and she's crying. Why are you crying? You know, a lot of girls feel this way, I'm told. You know, something, no, it's not that.
Man, I feel weird you acting this out. I don't know. Just say what you think. Like somehow she's going to show signs of having been molested is what you're saying.
And then
Got it.
you'd be like, what are you talking about?
Gotcha.
And then she'll spill, and then Garth acts.
Right. I think that that's very plausible. And or maybe, again, Hulda and Agnes, and the fact that we know Hulda is supposed to see the dentist, and Agnes and stuff, and maybe Garth is the person who, because of Becka, they feel they could tell, you know, and so maybe that's how the information comes out. I don't know. Because we watch a lot of Murder, She Wrote up in here, and I'm telling you, someone they show you at the beginning of the episode, and they show you some incidents with them, and then they be quiet about them for several beats of the story, always they come popping back, because then the reveal seems that much more of a shock. And like you kind of lost track of them. Like we're not talking about what the dentist is up to right now. And that's what makes it a better shocker. So I'm keeping my eye on him. I do think we're getting into like having to either plan a wedding, or maybe, do you think that anybody gets married by the end of the season? Like truly fully married? Or are we just planning and like we start the next season with a wedding?
No,
or do you think we're all married by the end of this season?
I think that the wedding promises or whatever will instigate some kind of change. So I think whatever the changes will happen this season, and that will leave us with sort of like a cliffhanger to be like, well shit, how did that turn out?
So just engagements or like weddings?
I think at least a wedding.
Okay.
Now I don't think that both Becka and Agnes their marriage, that their weddings will just go right the way that their parents thought they were going to go. And then we also have Daisy
and Hulda.
Daisy's not getting married, but we were introduced to the idea that there's a route for pearls to become aunts.
Right. And also I feel like what we were shown is that they may need to move her out of the Pearl Girl dorm.
Yes.
Like if Lydia is in some sort of cahoots here, then something like she will recognize that her laying in the bed next to Talia is a big problem. And
the aunt dorm, or wherever they live, might be sacrosanct as compared to
so the eyes could not come in.
Maybe. Doesn't that make sense? That was the deal that was made to me when Gilead started, was that there was a separation between men and women. I was in charge of the women, and this is the women's space. You cannot come in here.
I can go with that, especially having to ask permission to even come into the girls' area. I could see where, that there would have to be like some extra limit to be like, and you cannot come into this area, like almost like a nun's convent kind of thing. Like,
and that's where they're hiding Daisy.
And that's where we could put her. Okay, I like all of that. Okay, you guys, I hope you've enjoyed this next episode of Escaping Gilead. This is Caroline.
And this is Paul. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. Or you can leave us a comment like these fine followers did on Spotify. We got a comment from Summer on the 6th episode about where Penny was during the delivery. And although Caroline brought up the idea that maybe she was at the school delivering, she agrees that Penny was probably at home, which was Summer's point, as follows. She was at home. Why would a married Penny be at school? I don't think the baby was far along to live. He left home not to hear her, is what I'm thinking. But they already said this is the third one for her that didn't live. I want to know why she didn't tell what happened during the dental exam. Does accusations equal death if unproven, or death/punishment even for accusing? I think the one girl is in love with Agnes, but knows she'd be offed if she told.
Summer, totally agree with you on that. Yeah, I agree. She was at home. And good question about like whether or not she could be, any of them could be punished in some way for accusing the dentist. I'm glad you brought the dentist up, because I think this is a big part of the story that's sort of being quietly swept under the rug right now, but I think will come back to be a big part of what this season ends up being.
An alternative theory could be, as we saw with Agnes's comfort level with Lydia, and asking kind of hard questions or saying things that are very uncomfortable for a person to speak to in a position of authority, she might just tell her.
Yeah, I think that's plausible. Especially, I think maybe if Becka and Garth end up getting engaged, like maybe in an attempt to bust up the Becka situation, she's like, she's not even from a good family. Listen what her father did. You know, like freaking anything, right? She could lose it. It could totally happen.
All right. We also got a comment from Marcella Barreto. She says, the makeup and perfect teeth comes to show the hypocrisy of Gilead and who they are in real life right now. Everything is as natural as what they want to see is natural, and as long as women are under control. I bet they all have to be waxed and shaven because women can't dare to have hair and look like grown-ups. The spiking drinks seems like a way for the commanders to show the ants that the men are the ones in control. They let women play their soft power as ants and be busy playing house. This was on episode 5.
Yeah, totally agree with all of those things. And I agree with you. They probably are all like waxed and everything, because you're right. They cannot be showing any amount of being an actual adult woman. Not in this world, I don't think.
One final comment from Kays. Kays. She says, on the audio, I had to mute the flashback scene. That's deep fear response territory, what they employed there. I will tell you that when we are watching, like, I have to keep my thumb on the remote control to turn down the show, because the beatings and things can happen just sort of out of nowhere. And Caroline has the same response every time. Turn it down. She can't listen to the impacts, the crying, the screaming,
the
suffering. She cannot hear these things. So.
I don't know why people can. I have more questions for those of you who can. I really do. I'm looking at you and saying, how can you listen to another human scream? Maybe it's a mom thing. Maybe it's a maternal, like that's the thing that wakes you up in the middle of the night when you hear your baby cry. We should make like a big group project where everyone stands on one side of the room if you can stand the screaming, and if you I can turn it up, even enjoy it, whatever you're doing, because it's a part of the story or whatever you're saying. Those of us who have to turn the sound down, and what does it mean? What does it say about each of us? Paul is the person who turns it up. Paul's like,
Paul doesn't turn it up. He just doesn't change the volume at all.
He is fine with the screaming. Caroline can't freaking stand it. Part of it, I think, honestly, has to do with desensitizing. Like I don't watch a ton of shows that have things where people are being abused or screaming or kids are crying or any of that stuff. Like none of that stuff is normally anything I can deal with. The Testaments and Handmaid's Tale is specific to me because I think that it's a specific story that is a cautionary tale, and I am willing to learn and want to stop abuse from happening. So I want to understand how we get to the point of being okay with an abusive society, and so I can stomach it because of that. Like I will watch the show because there's other things going on, and I want to learn. But the actual acts of violence against another person, I cannot. I just can't. I don't know what it says. I don't know. All you guys out there, if you'd like to make a comment about, like, are you a person who can deal with it, or are you a person who can't deal with it? What do you think it says about any of us that can or cannot? I don't know. Some of it, I think, too, is if you've been up close to little kids, or if you've been up close to any kind of abuse. I was a preschool teacher and a first grade teacher, and I unfortunately had to see things, and I think when it's real and then it changes what entertainment looks like then to you, because it's like I've actually seen stuff. So I also worked on disability rights, and in that regard too, we had to investigate things like neglect and abuse and stuff like that. Again, I had to read case studies and I have to know about real life client situations. all of that takes the entertainment out of it for me entirely. So that's my story. That's why I can't do it. But Kays, I am with you. I am team mute button when it gets nuts. This is Caroline.
And this is Paul. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for listening.
On Clubhouse.